I rose early the next morning, cut myself a staff, and went off beyond the city barrier. I'll have a walk and banish my grief, I said to myself. It was a beautiful day, brilliant but not too hot. A cheerful, fresh breeze was blowing over the earth and rustling and playing moderately, keeping in constant motion and agitating nothing. For a long time I roamed about on the hills and in the forests. I did not feel happy. I had left home with the intention of surrendering myself to melancholy, but youth, the fine weather, the fresh air, the diversion of brisk pedestrian exercise, the delight of lying in solitude on the thick grass, produced their effect. The memory of those unforgettable words, of those kisses, again thrust themselves into my soul. It was pleasant to me to think that Zenaida could not, nevertheless, fail to do justice to my decision, to my heroism. Others are better for her than I thought, so be it. On the other hand, the others only say what they will do, but I have done it. And what else am I capable of doing for her? My imagination began to ferment. I began to picture to myself how I would save her from the hands of enemies, how, all bathed in blood, I would wrest her out of prison, how I would die at her feet. I recalled a picture which hung in our drawing room of Malek Adel carrying off Matilda, and thereupon became engrossed in the appearance of a big, speckled woodpecker which was busily ascending the slender trunk of a birch tree, and uneasily peering out from behind it, now on the right, now on the left, like a musician from behind the neck of his bass viol. Then I began to sing, "Not the White Snows," and ran off into the romance which was well known at that period, "I will await thee when the playful breeze." Then I began to recite aloud Ermac's invocation to the stars in Komyakov's tragedy. I tried to compose something in a sentimental vein. I even thought out the line wherewith the whole poem was to conclude. Oh, Zenaida. Zenaida, but it came to nothing. Meanwhile, dinner time was approaching. I descended into the valley. A narrow, sandy path wound through it and led toward the town. I strolled along that path. The dull trampling of horses' hoofs resounded behind me. I glanced round, involuntarily came to a standstill and pulled off my cap. I beheld my father and Zenaida. They were riding side by side. My father was saying something to her, bending his whole body toward her, and resting his hand on the neck of her horse, he was smiling. Zenaida was listening to him in silence, with her eyes severely downcast and lips compressed. At first I saw only them. It was not until several moments later that Bylovzarov made his appearance from round a turn in the valley, dressed in hussar uniform with pelisse, and mounted on a foam-flecked black horse. The good steed was tossing his head, snorting and curvetting. The rider was both reining him in and spurring him on. I stepped aside. My father gathered up his reins and moved away from Zenaida. She slowly raised her eyes to his, and both set off at a gallop. Bylovzarov dashed headlong after them with clanking sword. He is as red as a crab, I thought, and she? Why is she so pale? She has been riding the whole morning, and yet she is pale. I redoubled my pace and managed to reach home just before dinner. My father was already sitting, redressed, well-washed and fresh, beside my mother's armchair, and reading aloud to her in his even, sonorous voice, the feuilleton of the Journal des Débats, but my mother was listening to him inattentively and, on catching sight of me, inquired where I had been all day, adding, that she did not like to have me prowling about God only knew where and God only knew with whom. But I have been walking alone. I was on the point of replying, but I glanced at my father and for some reason or other held my peace.